Saving Eridu, Worlds of Atlantis. Written by Ravek Hunter, performed by Matthew Jackson. Chapter 1. The Inn. 10,000 years before the ancient civilization of Sumer rose to prominence in Mesopotamia, there were the Sagigar, or black-headed people, and they called their land Kurgal. I travelled among their people for a time, learned their ways, and found myself impressed by their absolute devotion to gods who did not care a whit about them. Wodenaz, the Wanderer. Namzu couldn't decide which was worse, the sight of death or the smell of it. Both assaulted his senses equally with disgust as he stared at the disfigured bodies lying on the floor from the doorway of the inn's second-story room. He gripped the magical light globe that he carried tighter, angling the illumination over the gruesome scene before him, scrutinizing every stark detail. There was blood spatter everywhere, the floors, the walls, even the ceiling. But the worst of it radiated from the remains in sticky crimson pools near where he stood. Taking a tentative step forward, he held his long wraparound skirt above his thin ankles, careful not to step in any of it. The sight of butchery on this scale in his city sickened him, especially since it had become so common of late. Namzu was the high priest of the judicial order in the city-state of Eridu, and he was not at all pleased to be at this inn again. "What have you determined so far?" he asked Sabum, the judicial priest first on the scene to investigate the murders. "They were a man and a woman from the territory of Larak, visiting Eridu for the creation of man ritual," Sabum replied shortly in his grave, resonating voice, while carefully navigating his way through the room. Larak, Namzu mused to himself, a city-state far to the north of Eridu. The priest-ruler of Eridu, whom everyone addressed as the N, could draw the faithful from the furthest reaches of the vast country they called Kurgal, and the people would come in droves. It was considered a spiritual pilgrimage to attend the creation of man ritual, dedicated to the creation god Enki at least once in one's lifetime. "Looks like they were hacked to death in the night by a hatchet or knife." Sabum was leaning close over the bodies, inspecting every detail of the deep cut marks on the victim's flesh. "Perhaps both." Sabum, in contrast to Namzu, was a thickly muscled man, a little shorter, and moved with the grace of a cat. His head was clean-shaven with no beard, and a perpetually sullen expression that never seemed to change even when he was happy. Namzu had not known Sabum to be often happy. Namzu's gaze took in the rest of the room. Aside from the carnage of the bodies and the blood-saturated woven mats they lay upon, there was only a mud-brick table built into the wall with a bowl of water for washing, and the couple's ostrich-skin travel bags. Nothing was unpacked. It appeared as if they had been murdered on their first night in the city. "What luck," he thought sarcastically. "Eridu is swelling with citizens from across Kurgal for the ritual, and every inn will be bursting at the seams." Namzu absently plotted a course through the room, frequently pausing to survey the slaughter from a different angle, his sandals sticking on unavoidable crimson droplets. "The opportunity to claim more victims over the next 12 days might be limitless for the killer, if we only knew what was driving this rage." His thoughts trailed off while he stroked his long, well-kept beard. "We don't even know if he, or they, is from the city," Sabum cautioned. "For all we know, the murderer could be here for the ritual, just like the multitudes of others. Maybe when the ceremonies are over, the problem will go away with it." Namzu shrugged. "That may be true, but how many more will die in the meantime? Besides, the killer could just as well be from Eridu, targeting citizens from out of town." Taking a linen cloth from inside the satchel that hung just across his chest, Namzu held it over his nose and mouth. "Do they still have valuables like the others?" Sabum delicately moved aside the layers of blood-soaked flax of one of the victims and located a money purse. It was tied closed, and he shifted it just enough to cause the metal bits inside to clink together dully. "It appears so." "These are not murders that have been motivated by robbery. Unlike this couple, none of the other victims had been more than
Sample complete. Ready to continue?